Imagine Evelyn, her small hands clutching a worn carpetbag, the train chugging westward. Each puff of smoke was a breath of hope mixed with a chilling fear. She was a mail-order bride, leaving behind the familiar cobblestone streets of Boston for the unknown plains of Montana. The advertisement had promised a good, hard-working man, a comfortable home, and a fresh start. But the photograph he'd sent was faded, his expression unreadable. Evelyn wasn't naive. She knew life wasn't a fairy tale. Her family needed the money, and she was willing to sacrifice her own happiness for their well-being. Still, a small ember of hope flickered in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, she would find something more than just security. Maybe she would find love. The train car was filled with other hopefuls, their faces etched with a mix of anticipation and weariness. A young mother struggled to quiet her crying baby, while an elderly man nervously polished his spectacles. Evelyn kept to herself, gazing out the window at the ever-changing landscape. The green hills of the east slowly gave way to the vast golden plains. She felt a sense of both excitement and trepidation as the train hurtled toward her new destiny. Little did she know, that destiny would be very different than she imagined. The man who awaited her was not the one she expected, nor was the life she was about to lead. Days blurred into nights as the train relentlessly pushed westward. Then it happened. A howling wind, like a banshee's wail, began to buffet the train. Snow, thick and blinding, plastered against the windows. The temperature plummeted. The train slowed, then shuddered to a halt. "Blizzard!" the conductor shouted, his voice barely audible above the wind. "We're stuck. Everyone stay inside. It's too dangerous to venture out." Fear rippled through the passengers. The train's heating system sputtered and died. Hours crawled by. The food and water supplies dwindled. Desperation began to set in. Evelyn watched as the other passengers huddled together for warmth, their faces pale and drawn. She couldn't just sit there and wait to freeze or starve. She had to do something. Despite the conductor's warnings, Evelyn made a decision. She bundled herself in every layer of clothing she owned, pulled her woolen hat low over her ears, and tied a scarf around her face. She would go for help. The other passengers tried to dissuade her, pleading with her to stay. But Evelyn was resolute. She had to try. Taking a deep breath, she opened the heavy train door and stepped out into the swirling white abyss. The wind instantly stole her breath away. The snow stung her skin like 1,000 needles. She could barely see a foot in front of her. Yet, she pressed on, driven by a desperate hope and a will to survive. Each step was a struggle, each breath a victory. The train, her only anchor, quickly disappeared behind her, swallowed by the storm. She was alone. The blizzard was relentless, an angry beast determined to consume her. Evelyn stumbled onward, her legs aching, her lungs burning. The wind howled in her ears, a deafening roar that drowned out all other sounds. She could no longer tell which direction she was heading. Every landmark was obscured by the swirling snow. Panic began to set in. She tripped over a snow-covered log, falling hard onto the frozen ground. The impact knocked the wind out of her. She lay there for a moment, gasping for air, wondering if this was the end. She thought of her family, their faces etched with worry. She couldn't give up. She had to keep going. Summoning all her remaining strength, Evelyn pushed herself back to her feet. She staggered forward, her vision blurring. The cold was seeping into her bones, numbing her senses. She knew she couldn't last much longer. Hallucinations danced at the edge of her vision. She imagined she saw a warm fire, a comforting cup of tea, a friendly face. But they were just mirages, cruel tricks of the mind. Despair washed over her. She was lost, alone, and freezing. Her hope, once so bright, flickered and threatened to extinguish completely. She closed her eyes, accepting her fate. This was how she would die, alone and forgotten, in the heart of a raging blizzard. Her last thought was of her mother's gentle smile. Then, darkness. Meanwhile, miles away, in a valley sheltered from the worst of the storm's fury, Cale moved with the grace of a seasoned hunter. He was Lakota, a warrior of the Great Plains, his life intricately woven with the rhythms of nature. His senses were sharp, honed by years of tracking game and reading the subtle signs of the land. Today he hunted deer, providing food for his village. But as he notched an arrow, a strange unease settled upon him. The wind carried a different song, a mournful cry that spoke of danger and disruption. The animals grew restless, their instincts warning them of the approaching storm. Cale knew he had to return to his village quickly. He scanned the horizon, his dark eyes piercing the swirling snow. He saw the storm worsening. Any animal caught in the open would surely perish. He felt a pang of sympathy for any creature exposed to the elements. Cale knew the blizzard would be a test of survival for all living things. Gathering his kill, Cale began his trek back home. He moved swiftly and purposefully, his moccasins barely disturbing the snow. He could feel the storm intensifying, the wind biting at his exposed skin. He knew his people would be preparing for the storm, reinforcing their lodges and gathering firewood. He needed to be there to help them. As he hurried on, he noticed an odd disturbance in the snow, something out of place, something that didn't belong. He paused, his senses on high alert. What was it? Cale cautiously approached the disturbance. The wind whipped around him, obscuring his vision, but he could make out a shape beneath the snow. It was a person? He knelt down, brushing away the snow with his bare hands. He revealed a woman, her face pale and lifeless, her body buried in the freezing snow. He recognized her clothes as belonging to the white settlers. What was she doing out here, alone, in the middle of a blizzard? It was madness. Most of his tribe had only seen the white settlers from a distance. They were a mystery to him. He hesitated for only a moment. He could leave her there to die. She was not one of his people. But Cale's heart wouldn't allow it. He couldn't leave anyone to perish in the storm, not even a stranger. It was against everything he believed in. With a grunt of effort, he lifted her into his arms. She was light as a feather, almost ethereal. He could feel the cold radiating from her body. He had to get her to warmth, and quickly. He adjusted his grip, securing her in his arms, and began to run towards his village, his heart pounding with a mixture of urgency and determination. He knew the journey would be long and arduous, but he wouldn't give up. He would save her life. It was his duty. The spirits had led him to her for a reason. Now he must find out why. He ran as fast as the wind would allow. The journey back to the village was a blur of snow and wind. Cale's muscles screamed in protest, his breath coming in ragged gasps. But he pressed on, driven by the image of Evelyn's still, pale face. He couldn't let her die. Finally, through the swirling snow, he saw the familiar shapes of the lodges. Relief washed over him. He stumbled into the village, the wind whipping at his back. The villagers, huddled around fires, looked up in surprise. "Cale!" a woman cried, rushing towards him. It was his sister, Minya. "What have you there?" Cale simply nodded towards the limp figure in his arms. Minya gasped, recognizing the woman's clothing. A white woman? In this storm? Cale didn't have time to explain. "She needs warmth," he said, his voice hoarse. "Quickly." Minya and several other women quickly led Cale to a large lodge. They gently took Evelyn from his arms and laid her on a bed of furs. The women worked quickly, stripping off her frozen clothes and wrapping her in warm blankets. They stoked the fire, filling the lodge with heat. Cale watched anxiously as the women tended to Evelyn. He could see the concern on their faces. They were skilled healers, knowledgeable about the ways of the body. He trusted them to do everything they could. Minya turned to Cale, her expression grave. "She is very weak," she said. "It will be a long time before she recovers, if she recovers at all." Cale felt a pang of guilt. He had brought a stranger into their village, a stranger who could potentially bring trouble. But he knew he had done the right thing. He had saved a life. Now all they could do was wait and pray. Days turned into weeks. Evelyn remained in a feverish slumber, hovering between life and death. The Lakota women tended to her with unwavering care, using traditional remedies and prayers to coax her back to health. They cleansed her wounds, fed her broth, and sang ancient songs to soothe her spirit. Slowly, gradually, Evelyn began to respond. The fever subsided, her breathing became more regular, and a faint flicker of consciousness returned to her eyes. She opened them, her gaze unfocused and confused. She saw strange faces peering down at her, their expressions filled with concern. She was in a strange place, a warm, dimly lit lodge. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and smoke. She was surrounded by unfamiliar objects. Intricately woven blankets, handcrafted pottery, and strange symbols painted on the walls. Panic welled up inside her. Where was she? What had happened? She tried to sit up, but her body was weak and unresponsive. She groaned, and one of the women gently pushed her back down. "Rest," the woman said, her voice soft and soothing. "You are safe now." Evelyn didn't understand the woman's words, but she understood the tone. It was a tone of kindness and compassion. She looked around at the faces of the women, their eyes filled with genuine concern. She realized that these strangers, these people she had been taught to fear, were taking care of her. They had saved her life. A wave of gratitude washed over her, pushing back the fear and confusion. She closed her eyes again, surrendering to the warmth and the gentle care of her saviors. She was alive, and for now that was all that mattered. As Evelyn's strength returned, she began to observe her surroundings more closely. The Lakota people lived a life that was both simple and profound. They lived in harmony with nature, respecting the land and all its creatures. They shared everything, and their sense of community was incredibly strong. She watched the women as they prepared food, tanned hides, and cared for the children. She was struck by their skill and their quiet dignity. She saw the men as they hunted, protected the village, and engaged in ceremonies. She admired their bravery and their deep connection to the spiritual world. Everything was so different from what she had known in Boston. There were no bustling streets, no crowded shops, no rigid social rules. Here, life was dictated by the seasons, by the needs of the tribe, and by the wisdom of the elders. The language was a barrier, but the Lakota people were patient and understanding. They used gestures and expressions to communicate, and Evelyn slowly began to pick up a few words. She learned that Cale was the one who had found her, the one who had saved her life. She wanted to thank him, but she didn't know how. She also started understanding her savior Cale. He had a quiet strength about him, a presence that commanded respect. He would often visit her lodge, sitting silently by the fire, watching her with his dark, intense eyes. She sensed a deep sadness within him, a burden he carried with stoicism. She realized she was starting to feel at home. A sense of peace settled upon her that she had never experienced before. Maybe, just maybe, this blizzard had blown her to exactly where she was meant to be. Despite the language barrier, a connection began to form between Evelyn and Cale. He would sit with her in the evenings, sharing stories through gestures and drawings in the dirt. She learned about his life as a warrior, his responsibilities to his tribe, and his deep love for the land. She, in turn, tried to explain her life in Boston, her family, and her reasons for traveling west. It was difficult, but Cale listened patiently, his eyes filled with understanding. He seemed to see beyond her words, to sense the emotions that lay beneath. They communicated through their eyes, through their smiles, and through the simple act of being present with each other. Evelyn found herself drawn to Cale's quiet strength, his unwavering integrity, and his deep connection to the spiritual world. He, in turn, was captivated by her resilience, her curiosity, and her gentle spirit. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Cale pointed to the sky, to the stars twinkling above. He spoke a word in Lakota, and Minya, who was nearby, translated. "He says the stars are our ancestors, watching over us." Evelyn looked up at the stars, feeling a sense of awe and wonder. She felt a connection to something larger than herself, something ancient and powerful. She turned to Cale, her eyes filled with emotion. He smiled, a rare and beautiful sight, and reached out to take her hand. Their fingers intertwined, and a spark passed between them. A spark of understanding, of connection, of something more. They were from different worlds, different cultures, but in that moment, they were simply two souls drawn together by fate. It was clear they were meant to find each other. Evelyn's understanding of Lakota culture deepened with each passing day. Minya, Kale's sister, became her friend and teacher, patiently explaining the customs and traditions of the tribe. Evelyn learned about the significance of the buffalo, the importance of family, and the reverence for the Great Spirit. She witnessed Kale's dedication to his role as a warrior. He was responsible for protecting the village from danger, hunting for food, and ensuring the well-being of his people. She saw him lead ceremonies, his voice strong and resonant as he chanted ancient prayers. She watched him train the young men, teaching them the skills they would need to survive. Evelyn was particularly moved by the Lakota people's respect for the land. They took only what they needed and gave back whenever they could. They understood that everything was connected, that the fate of the tribe was intertwined with the fate of the earth. She started to learn the Lakota language, her tongue stumbling over the unfamiliar sounds. But the more she learned, the more she understood the Lakota worldview. She began to see the world through their eyes, to appreciate the beauty and wisdom of their way of life. She also understood the burden Kale carried as a warrior. She saw the scars on his body, both physical and emotional. She knew that he had witnessed violence and loss, that he had made sacrifices for his people. She admired his strength, but she also longed to ease his pain. She found herself respecting not just Kale, but his people and their way of life. She began to question her own past. Was Boston really where she belonged? Or was she finally home? The peaceful rhythm of life in the Lakota village was shattered one day by the arrival of a stranger. A white man, dressed in city clothes, rode into the village on a weary horse, his face etched with worry. He introduced himself as Caleb, the man Evelyn was supposed to marry. He explained that after the blizzard, he had organized a search party, desperate to find her. He had heard rumors of a white woman living with the Lakota, and he had followed the trail to this village. Evelyn's heart sank. She had almost forgotten about Caleb, about her old life. Now here he was, a reminder of the life she had left behind. Caleb's eyes lit up when he saw her. He rushed towards her, relief flooding his face. "Evelyn, thank God you're alive." He reached out to embrace her, but she hesitated, unsure how to respond. Cale stepped forward, his expression hardening. He stood protectively in front of Evelyn, his eyes fixed on Caleb. The air crackled with tension. Caleb looked at Cale with suspicion and jealousy. He saw the way Cale looked at Evelyn, the way she looked back at him. He sensed the connection between them, and it filled him with anger. "What's going on here, Evelyn?" he demanded. "Who is this man?" Evelyn felt trapped, torn between her old life and her new one. She knew she had to make a choice that would determine the course of her future. The decision was now before her. Which life did she choose? The arrival of Caleb brought a wave of unease to the village. He represented a threat to their way of life, a reminder of the encroaching white settlers. The Lakota people watched cautiously, their eyes filled with suspicion. This would be a turning point. Caleb pleaded with Evelyn to return with him. He promised her a comfortable life, a home of her own, and the security she had always craved. He spoke of her family in Boston, reminding her of their sacrifices and their expectations. Evelyn listened, her heart aching with conflicting emotions. She thought of her family, their faces etched with hope. She had promised to provide for them, to make a better life for them. But she also thought of Cale, of his quiet strength, his unwavering integrity, and the connection they shared. She looked around at the Lakota village, at the faces of the people who had saved her life, who had welcomed her into their community. She saw Minya, her friend and teacher, and the other women who had cared for her with such tenderness. She saw the children playing, their laughter echoing through the valley. She realized that she had found something here that she had never found in Boston. A sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, a sense of love. She had learned to respect the Lakota way of life, to admire their harmony with nature, and to appreciate their strong community. But could she abandon her family? Could she turn her back on the life she had always known? The decision weighed heavily on her, threatening to crush her. She knew that whatever choice she made, someone would be hurt. She asked for time to think, to weigh her options. Caleb reluctantly agreed, but his eyes were filled with anxiety. He knew that he was losing her, that the Lakota people had captured her heart. Evelyn walked alone into the hills, seeking guidance from the Great Spirit. She needed to find clarity, to understand what she truly wanted. Her destiny hung in the balance. This was her moment of truth. What would she choose? As Evelyn walked through the hills, she saw Cale approaching. He walked with a purpose, his eyes searching for her. When he reached her, he stopped, his gaze intense and unwavering. Using the Lakota words she had learned, Evelyn spoke haltingly. "Cale, feelings." She gestured towards her heart, trying to convey the depth of her emotions. Cale understood. He reached out and gently took her hand, his touch sending a shiver down her spine. He looked into her eyes, his own filled with a mixture of tenderness and longing. Minya arrived then, sensing the significance of the moment. She acted as translator. Evelyn confessed everything, her voice trembling with emotion. She spoke of her admiration for Cale, her respect for his people, and the love that had blossomed in her heart. She admitted that she had never felt this way before, that Cale had shown her what it meant to truly live. Cale listened intently, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he spoke in Lakota, his voice low and resonant. Minya translated. "He says he feels the same. He says your spirit shines like the morning star. He says he never thought he could love a woman from another world, but you have captured his heart." Tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes. She had dared to hope, but she had never expected Cale to reciprocate her feelings. She realized that she had found love in the most unexpected place, with the most unexpected person. But their different worlds still loomed between them. Could their love truly bridge the gap? Cale pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her in a warm embrace. He whispered words of comfort and reassurance in Lakota, words that she didn't understand but felt deep in her soul. Their hearts beat as one. The decision had been made. Her path was clear. Evelyn knew what she had to do. She returned to the village, hand in hand with Cale, her heart filled with a newfound certainty. She approached Caleb, her expression firm but gentle. She explained her decision, speaking with honesty and conviction. She told him that she was grateful for his concern, but that she could not return with him. She had found her place here with Cale and the Lakota people. She had found love, a sense of belonging, and a purpose that she had never known before. Caleb was heartbroken, but he could see the truth in her eyes. He could see the love that she felt for Cale, the connection that bound them together. He knew that he couldn't force her to return with him, that her heart belonged elsewhere. With a heavy heart, Caleb prepared to leave. He wished Evelyn well, hoping that she would find happiness in her new life. He knew that he would never forget her, but he also knew that it was time to move on. Evelyn watched him ride away, a pang of sadness in her heart. But she knew that she had made the right decision. She turned to Cale, her eyes filled with love. She knew that her life would not be easy, that there would be challenges ahead. But she was ready to face them, with Cale by her side. She dedicated herself to learning the Lakota language and customs fully. Minya continued to be her guide, patiently teaching her the ways of the tribe. Evelyn learned to tan hides, to sew clothes, and to prepare traditional Lakota meals. She became skilled in the art of beadwork, creating beautiful designs that reflected her love for the land and her new family. She fully embraced her new life. The Lakota tribe became her family. She was home. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for a new beginning. The entire Lakota village buzzed with excitement as they prepared for the ceremony. It was a celebration of love, of unity, and of the blending of two different cultures. Evelyn wore a dress made of soft deerskin, adorned with intricate beadwork created by Minya and the other women of the tribe. Her hair was braided with feathers and flowers, and her face was painted with traditional Lakota symbols. She looked radiant, her eyes shining with happiness. Cale wore his finest warrior attire, his face painted with bold stripes, his hair adorned with eagle feathers. He stood tall and proud, his heart filled with love for Evelyn. The ceremony took place in the center of the village, under the open sky. The elders chanted ancient prayers, blessing the union of Evelyn and Cale. The villagers sang and danced, celebrating their love and their commitment to each other. Evelyn and Cale exchanged vows in both Lakota and English, promising to love, honor, and cherish each other for all eternity. They exchanged gifts, symbols of their love and their commitment to each other. Cale gave Evelyn a beautiful eagle feather, a symbol of courage and strength. Evelyn gave Cale a silver locket containing a picture of her family in Boston, a reminder of her past and a symbol of her new beginning. As the sun set, Evelyn and Cale were pronounced husband and wife. The villagers cheered, celebrating the union of their two cultures. Evelyn and Cale were united in love, their hearts forever intertwined. Their wedding was a beautiful symbol of hope, of acceptance, and of the power of love to bridge even the widest gaps. From then on, they would face the world together. Life was not always easy for Evelyn and Cale. They faced challenges, both from within the tribe and from the outside world. Some members of the tribe were wary of Evelyn, seeing her as an outsider, a threat to their way of life. Others were accepting, welcoming her into their community with open arms. The encroaching white settlers posed a constant threat to the Lakota people. They coveted the Lakota land, seeking to claim it for themselves. Cale, as a warrior, had to defend his people from these intrusions, putting his life on the line. Evelyn stood by Cale's side, supporting him in every way she could. She used her knowledge of the white settlers to help the tribe understand their ways and to anticipate their actions. She acted as a bridge between the two cultures, trying to foster understanding and prevent conflict. She also faced personal challenges. She missed her family in Boston, wondering if she would ever see them again. She struggled to fully master the Lakota language, sometimes feeling isolated and alone. But through it all, Evelyn and Cale's love for each other remained strong. They faced every challenge together, supporting each other, and drawing strength from their commitment to each other and to the tribe. They had children, beautiful children who inherited the best of both worlds. They taught them about their Lakota heritage and about Evelyn's life in Boston, instilling in them a sense of pride and belonging. Evelyn and Cale proved that love could conquer all, that differences could be overcome, and that two cultures could unite in peace and harmony. Their love story became a legend, a testament to the power of the human heart. They lived a life filled with love, purpose, and adventure, forever bound together by fate and by the blizzard that had brought them together.